Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. This is a wonderful Sunday afternoon, and we are here to listen to the teachings of Louis Harrison, who is a dear friend. And this event is sponsored by Dancing Elephant Press, which is my publication that spreads positivity throughout the world. And I do believe that this is really important to learn from Louis and his teachings from us. And I'm going to hand it over to Dia Rasun, another wonderful editor and dear friend, who is going to introduce Louis.
Thank you very much, Gabriella. Well, listen, we're going to get a wonderful opportunity. Listen to a genius. I don't know how many of you have ever had the opportunity to sit down and talk with a genius. At my age, at 77, I've traveled the world and had an opportunity to listen to people that thought they were geniuses and true geniuses. And it's a wonderful thing to behold and to be able to learn from them. Lewis is a particularly unique individual in his education. People didn't think he was very smart. He didn't think he was very smart. And then all of a sudden, people said, this guy has some smarts. And then he began to study multidisciplines. When you're a true genius, you don't just focus on one thing, you focus on many things. If he has a passion, you could say that his passion is to discuss game and string theory, most especially game theory. But today we're going to talk about artificial intelligence and we're going to talk about human intelligence. And from there, we're going to bounce into several other topics. So I want to introduce my friend now, Louis Harrison. Louis, please take it away.
Thank you so much, DR. Um, my work, which is called Harrison's Applied Game Theory, or HAT, that's not a coincidence, HAGT, HAT, is built on a foundation of many, many, many other teachers, many of whom I will mention in this short program. Um, but the main key to it is, and this leads to artificial intelligence, without a doubt, it leads to it, and it's part of it, is that if you look at your life, whoever you are, whatever you do, and you went on Wikipedia and looked up the word game, what is a game, definition of game, you would see your life is essentially a game. It's a game. There are players, there are rules of engagement, there are cheaters, there are penalties for cheating. Um, there are teams, there are playbooks. These are all the essentials of any game, whether it's chess or checkers or football or basketball or long distance running, or being a lawyer, or being a doctor, or being a filmmaker, it doesn't matter. Being a publisher, it's all games. So, in most games, what we are looking to do is to win. And that's kind of a superficial statement to win. What you want to do is you want to maximize your potential at the lowest possible cost. So one of the greatest tools ever created to maximize your potential at the lowest possible cost is AI. So then the question becomes, well, what is AI? And we tend to think of Stanley Kubrick, 2001 Space Odyssey, or Ray Kurzweil, or important thinkers in this area. But you need to understand that the very first chimp that ever put honey on a stick and stuck it in a hole in a tree and pulled out ants, that's artificial intelligence. Anything that goes beyond absolute pure instinct, in a sense, is artificial intelligence. So we can get into a long debate about what isn't artificial intelligence, what isn't artificial intelligence, but you're never going to get a clear answer to that. So human intelligence, you could say, and is intelligence that comes out of the fundamental elements of what does it mean to be a human being. And I can describe that in very short ideas. What does it mean to be a human being? Well, human beings are competitive. They're status oriented and hierarchical. Unless they're stupid, which many are, they gear themselves towards reciprocal altruism. That means they take care of other people at a loss to themselves. So in the long run, they will benefit from the actions of those other people. This meeting right here is probably an expression of reciprocal altruism at one of its highest levels. So, what we're ultimately dealing with, if we go into questions, what we're ultimately dealing with is, uh, if you're going to do artificial intelligence, you're going to have to deal with things like ethics and morality and spirituality and, all of these basic concepts. And for me, not to make this too long and too heady, for me, I'm looking to maximize my potential at the lowest possible cost. That's what that means. That's all it means. I think it's relevant here that I've been told I have stage 4 cancer. And so, what does that mean? Well, it doesn't really mean anything. A doctor can't foretell the future. They can look at an algorithm and say, based on your age and your history and your health, you got 2.5 years to live. That's what they told me. You have 2.5 years to live. But they don't know about how my brain works or whether I'm going to be doing coffee enemas or cleaning out my liver, all kinds of wacky new age stuff. They just don't know that. And so what happens is game theory and artificial intelligence are all elements that I'm going to latch onto and bring into the play of my life day to day, the play of my life, gameplay. So what I would ask anybody watching this to do is to say, what is the game that I'm playing? In the game of my life, what is the game that I'm playing? And I could say to them, if it's about making a lot of money, why? If it's about great sex, why? I'm always asking people why, who, what, why, where, when, how, why? And most people haven't done enough introspection to answer that question. So artificial intelligence is an inspirational and motivational tool for maximizing your potential at the lowest possible cost and going beyond the basics of an instinct, status, competition. I hope that answers the general question about it.
It does. Thank you, Louis.
It-
How you think that the artificial intelligence is going to shape our futures as human? I know it changed a lot already, but what you envision for the future, how it's going to look like?
You're not even going to see it. I'm going to tell you a joke, and it wasn't written for artificial intelligence, but it is an artificial intelligence joke. It's two young fish, macho, intelligent, brilliant, good-looking, talented fish. They're in the ocean. They go by a very old fish. They go, "How you doing, sir?" He goes, "How you doing, young man? How's the water?" And they say, "It's fine, thanks." And about 5 seconds go by, and one fish looks at the other and says, "What's water?" So that's what you're dealing here. You're
That's
dealing,
great.
it's like, what is artificial intelligence? It's everything you do is artificial intelligence, everything. Zoom, a coffee maker, whatever. And then the question becomes, well, which artificial intelligence do I need? And that goes to Maslow. I like Maslow. If you know Abraham Maslow, he's not the only one who does this, but he talks about the hierarchy of needs. And in my work as a Zen teacher, which Maslow is not involved in Zen at all, that I know of, though Harvey Slayton was, the physicist I studied with who helped develop game theory at Los Alamos, that in my life at this stage at 73 with a supposedly deadly disease, well, my life hasn't changed very much, except for the lucid dreaming that I have in the middle of the day, which is another story altogether. Uh, and they sent me into the psych ward for that. And the nurse, who was wise, said, "Don't ever tell anybody that you're doing lucid dreaming when you're in a psych ward, because they'll have you wrapped up and in the place within 10 minutes. It's a psychotic state." So I stopped telling. Do you have any lucid dream? Nope, nope, no dreams, no hallucination. So what happened for me is I'm using artificial intelligence at every single level I can, and how I do it in terms of metrics. How do you measure it? Which I have mentioned in the past in our meetings, is something called PEEPASA, P-E-E-P-P, A-S-A, which stands for a practical, effective, efficient, precise, productive, accurate, accountable, and self-aware. If you're going to make a decision in your life and you can't get a yes to all of those, and I'll send them to you if you send me an email, I'll send you the list, and then you're not going to. So that's probably the cancer. My voice is starting to go, well, it's probably the cancer. But so I'm running off of PEEPASA on a regular basis, what's effective, what's efficient. And I had to call my psychiatrist up, my psychologist, who I know for 52 years and who discovered me. And I said, dude, it's like I'm hallucinating all day long. It's not a tug of war. What it is I'm with you guys right now, 100% with you. If I went to that bed back there and lay down for 3 minutes, I'd be in a hallucinogenic state within 3 minutes and stay there for about an hour. I'd be having conversations with you guys. We'd be going skiing, maybe making love or whatever. I mean, just way out there. And so I called him up to see if I had a mental health issue. And he said, no, you're a genius. This is what happens to geniuses when they go into psychic mode. You never experienced this before. I never did. And I'm talking to a guy who's did 1,000 LSD trips back in the 60s. He's very old. He did a lot of hallucinogens. He said, they never warned you about this. They never said to you when you're 73 years old and you're having a near-death experience, it's not going to be about white lights in the distance going up tunnels. It's going to be really merging into a distinctly new reality that might last 20 years. I might be doing this shit for the next 20 years. But I'm constantly in a lucid dreaming state unless I'm in a situation like this. I hope that answered some question.
Louis, can you talk about John von Neumann and
Yeah,
the beginning of game theory and your interest in it?
yeah, thank you, Phyllis. John von Neumann is probably the most important scientific thinker of the 20th century. He's not mentioned very much at Los Alamos because he stayed below the radar. But Robert Oppenheimer was one of his students, and Edward Teller was one of his students. And he was, I know Gabby will be proud about this, he was Hungarian. And he's one of the fathers of computer science. And they ran a regular Thursday night poker game at Los Alamos. And among the people in that game were Richard Feynman. People know that name. He won the Nobel Prize. Oppenheimer, Edward Teller, my teacher and mentor, Harvey Slayton. And one night, while they were playing, von Neumann just sort of chuckled and said, the whole world is really just a poker game. And everybody said, like, what do you mean? And by the way, here's all the ego, so forgive me. Von Neumann's granddaughter knows of my existence and of my work. So that's just a tickle beyond ego, that she knows who I am and what I'm doing. But von Neumann essentially said, and it's incorrect for the most part, by the way, but von Neumann said that human beings are rational creatures. They make rational decisions to maximize their potential in any situation. And that's von Neumann. And he wrote a book about economics and behaviorism and game theory. And his work has produced over 20 Nobel Prizes. My work is different. Hacked is different because my assumption, which is how I met Harvey Slayton, one of von Neumann's students, when he was 97 when I met him, is I said to Harvey, I'm a dilettante. I have an undergraduate degree. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a computer scientist. I'm not a linguist. I never went to MIT. I don't have any of that stuff going on. But I can tell you it's absolutely nonsense to think that human beings are rational creatures. Human beings are always manipulated by emotions, by emotional baggage, by unresolved childhood trauma, and they frame their reality so that other people will think that they're sane. They actually convince other people that they're sane even when they're not, so that they can have social relationships. Now, in all fairness to them, This work was developed in the 1940s, and this is before Jacob Moreno developed his theories about social consciousness and social intelligence. It's before the ideas about multiple intelligence theory. It's way before that, so they didn't know. You can't know what you don't know. But so for me, everything I do is based on von Neumann, even on the stuff that I think he's incorrect about. Hope that answers that.
Developing, but in developing this game theory, though, when you went up to him, you told us a story in a previous meeting. You told the story about going up to him and telling him, excuse me, but I think you're wrong. People are not rational.
Yeah, Harvey Slayton. His name is Harvey Slayton, just so you know.
Okay.
He was 97 when I met him, and he was studying Zen, and 2 blocks away from my house. No, he agreed with me. What he actually said was, you got 10 minutes to explain your theory, and if you don't do it well, I'm kicking you out. And so I used that 10 minutes well. I explained to him, behaviorism and rational Milton Erickson and Eric Erickson and Freud and, all of it. I'm a polymath. I have data on everything, and so he just sat there and said, this is incredible. You should write a book about this and name it after yourself. That's the book, by the way. Harrison's Applied Game Theory. And that's a raw copy. So when I say raw, it means it's feral. I never edited it after I wrote it. So sometimes it gets terrible reviews. Oh, spelling errors, grammatical errors, whatever. I don't care. I got it out there. So this is the basic concept as we go a little deeper if we need to. The essence of applied game theory, and I don't want to confuse game theory, von Neumann's game theory, with Harrison's applied game theory. These guys are major mathematicians, but in Harrison's applied game theory, the very first example is there's a child in a sandbox, and some other child takes his toys, and he says, "Please give me back my toys." And the other kid, he's 3 years old. He doesn't say screw you. He just says, he's selfish. No, I have your toy and I'm bigger than you. So our poor little fellow says to the kid's mother who stole his toy, can I have my toys back? And the mother says, it's your problem. So he says, okay. And this is a kid that's evolved enough in the nature of intuitive game theory that when the mother's not looking, he slugs the kid. Then the kid falls over backward and starts crying. He takes his toy back and says to his mother, that guy hit me. And he denies it. He just lies. He just cold, straight out lies. So I didn't hit him. And nobody could say anything. She didn't see him hit him, and he lied. And he got his toys back. So that's a zero-sum game. Some people like Hamas, which is just, I'm not even being political here. You never pick a zero-sum game with someone that's bigger than you. That's a standard rule in game theory. You don't pick a fight with someone that's bigger than you, And in the case of Putin, he just assumed that Russia was bigger than Ukraine. It's an assumption he made, whatever bigger means. It's an assumption that he made. Bad assumption. So game theory, there's hundreds of games in game theory. And there's names for them, where this is the problem, this is how someone needs to win, this is the theory, this is the constraint, which is called the theory of constraints. In every situation, there's a constraint, which keeps you from getting to the desired outcome. And there's a strategy that you can develop to win the game, even a zero-sum game. And that's how game theory begins to expand. Is what is this problem? What is this problem? What is this problem? What is this problem? And what is the game that we're going to play to solve that problem? I hope that answers whatever the question was.
I have a question for you, Louis.
It does.
Can game theory help humanity to make things better than they are? It's a game, as you say, and many times the game is to advantage of something, and unfortunately the advantage of, in many places, it's a corporation, or not necessarily the little people, in a way, like not just general humanity.
Yeah,
It to help humanity.
yeah, you're throwing some things in there that I'm not going to be on your side.
Okay,
Uh,
that's fine.
yeah, it's like the world is a corporate entity. The entire world is a corporate entity. So the only thing you can do, and I'm going to give you an example, a real example, because I made a point about ethics before. So I get a call from somebody in my work. I'm a game theory consultant, and he wants to put about 1,500 wells in Sierra Leone. And I call a guy up I know who runs a huge foundation, not a particularly moral person, in spite of how he presents himself, but he's a Christian. He describes himself as a Christian. And he has a philanthropic corporation that has millions of dollars to build wells in Sierra Leone. So he's my buddy now, right? Because I don't care whether he's ethical or moral or not. I want to get these wells built so I can get clean water to people. Now, you may be more moral than me and say, nah, let the people starve to death and get malaria. I'm not going to bribe anybody. So he's worked out a system. What he's trying to do is get Jesus into a Muslim country. That's his end game, to get Jesus into a Muslim country. So he goes into Sierra Leone and they begin naming the schools after imams. Muslim, they go to the Muslim leader and say, could we build a school here? And we're going to name it after you. And all we need from you is to let us come in and teach Jesus 4 hours a week. The imam goes, well, Jesus is considered a prophet in Islam anyway. I have no problem with that. And you're going to name the school after me? So all these kids are going to get degrees and end up with government jobs. They went to school named after me? Yes. And so they worked this deal out of schools named after imams, where all these Christian missionaries come in and get to talk about Jesus for 4 hours a week. When the contract ends, now you may not like this, the contract ends, they built the wells, and then they're pulling out. And the imams say, well, where are you going? So we have a 4-year contract, we're pulling out. Well, what do we got to do to keep you here? You got to let us teach Jesus 7 hours a week. That's game theory, making the world a better place. So I don't have a problem with corporations. They're interested in making profits, and unless they're privately held, stock is owned by stockholders. People can choose to buy stock or not. I'm not an ideologue. I don't think that socialists are purer than capitalists. That's not part of my game. So,
Well, I got a question for you, Louis.
yes.
So an important question that's come up in other presentations for you is some people are concerned that artificial intelligence will make people dumber. This was a question that was important in an earlier conversation. Can you speak to that? Is that true, that it will hurt our brains?
No, it will not hurt your brain. If you're stupid, then AI will make you stupider. And if you're smart, AI will make you smarter. It's just a tool. If you put the right tool in the wrong hands, it's interesting. We bought a boat yesterday from China because I'm in a wheelchair now. You can't see it, but I'm in a wheelchair. I have a, what's that?
A toy boat.
We bought it. My wife was inserting.
A toy boat.
Thank you, honey. I didn't know what it
You
was
have to
called.
clarify that. Toy boat.
Thank you, honey. I appreciate that input and feedback from my wife. We bought a toy boat, the kind of boat that you can put in a little pond, and it's run off a remote control. I was very excited about getting this toy boat. So we get the boat, and I take the screwdriver they give me to open the boat so I can put the batteries in. The screwdriver doesn't work. Okay. So that's AI at its worst. The person that designed it's stupid. The person that I bought on Amazon, am I stupid? I don't know. I'll call them up and try and get them to take it back and give me a refund. But it's incompetence. So part of game theory goes back to an idea like the Peter Principle, a very important book written 65 years ago. So if you give someone enough time, they'll become incompetent. So no, I don't think AI makes people dumber. It just gives them the tool to do dumber things at a bigger level.
What do you think about influencing the brain though? So if children get exposed to learning AI technology and watching television and games way early, like I've seen mothers giving their phones to a 1-year-old.
Well, they will lose skills that they have now, like cursive writing, and they will get new skills that they haven't had before. A faster integration of sensory and motor function. You'll be seeing kids tap dancing faster than you ever imagined ever possible. While they're texting. You'll see people that are doing Rubik's cubes in 8 seconds. I don't know what the record is. It's like 8 seconds. You give a kid a Rubik's cube and he goes like that, he's done. So yeah, you're gonna get a thing like Tetris syndrome. They're not diseases, they're syndromes. There's a syndrome called Tetris syndrome that people get from playing the video game Tetris. And the people who study with me, I have a school where I teach Harrison's applied game theory. One of the things they got to do, even if they're older, they're going to learn how to play Warcraft and Minecraft. Those are the two video games that are most in alignment with game theory. Yeah, so, and multiple intelligence is important here. Howard Gardner's system of multiple intelligence is really important here. Because as a person, do they have interactive intelligence? Do they have kinesthetic intelligence? Do they have auditory intelligence? Are they Do they have synesthesia? Do they see? Do they see sounds and hear colors? It's an incredible time. And yes, people will not be able to do cursive writing, and who cares? No one's going to need cursive writing. I hope that answers your question.
Basically, time's just changing, but it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, maybe because of what I'm doing now, all of my students will be lucid dreaming in the daytime. Maybe this is a breakthrough that I have a school and I teach people how to do lucid dreaming when they're awake.
Years ago, I was involved with the computer industry when it first started, going back way back to 65, and when we first had these gigantic computers. In 82, when we came out with PCs, people said, "Oh my God, we're going to hardly ever need paper, for example. We're just going to be working on computers." At that moment, I should have bought stock in paper companies because we have used more paper since then than we have ever used prior to. We've used just reams and reams and reams of paper. And I think the same thing is going to happen with AI. As we start with AI, do you agree that it's just going to make things go faster? We're going to learn faster. We're going to start applying things at a more rapid rate.
Yeah, it will also serve us in ways faster that don't serve our best interests. So what happens is there's a certain power in the journey itself. Once you define what your intention is, and you define your desired outcome, we're probably not going to have time to do that today. But in my work, one of the first things I say to someone, what's your intention? What do you mean? Well, what's your intention? Well, what do you mean? Now we spend a half an hour talking about intention. What is a person's intention? Now, once they know what the intention is, then what's your desired outcome? Well, what do you mean? What's your desired outcome? and they'll say a good cup of coffee, let's say. I'm using that as an example. And I say that is not a good outcome. That's not an effective outcome because what you really want is a hot, assuming it's hot coffee, and you want a hot sensual experience with aroma and a black liver, a black liquid, which could be coffee, but it could be 50 other things also. So the more physical your desired outcome is, the more limiting your process is. So now you're really going into esoteric stuff. How do you live in a world where your motto, this is my motto, this is new, I'm throwing this in, it's new, I'm going to say it slow. When you're ready, willing, and able, all manner of unforeseen events and circumstances arise spontaneously without discipline and without willpower to bring your intention and your desired outcome into fruition. I know that was a real big sentence, and I'm not going to repeat it again because it won't help you any if you don't get it. But it's the essence of manifestation. It's what manifestation is. That as soon as you know your intention and your desired outcome, manifestation is already happening. It's already in process. You know, if you believe in parallel universe theory, I'm dead already. I survived cancer. I died from cancer. I got hit. I neither survived cancer nor I'm dead from cancer. I was walking across the street thinking about the fact I was diagnosed by cancer and got hit by a car. And there's and by the way, I can recommend a movie on that. I'm a big movie guy. There's a movie named Chronic. It's called Chronic, and it's about that. It's about someone's intention and your desired outcome. And the first thought I thought when I was told that you have cancer I mean, I thought an old Zen master said this to me, but I was the Zen master who said it to myself, which was, how old were you planning on being when you died? 73, 76, 78, 81. Let's say I gave him the system. They gave me 2.5 years. Let's say I stretch it to 6.5 years. So what? Then I die then. If I live to be 90, then most of my friends will be dead. I won't be able to call anybody up like I'm calling everybody now. Hey, they told me I got cancer. Oh, they're sorry, Bob's dead. He can't talk to you.
Louis, I want to ask you about two things, and they may be related. You were boosted in a Medium article today where you talked about, you quoted someone talking about stupid people and how stupid people insist on being stupid. That was one thing. And then after you addressed that idea, can you also talk about RTPs?
Yeah, thank you. Look, in the old primal days, and I recommend to everybody that you study the work of Robert Ardrey. He did 4 important books, but the one that's most relevant is called Territorial Imperative. Goes back to those kids in the sandbox, somebody taking out someone else's toys. So
That was a great book.
yeah, it is. So Phyllis just asked me the question again. I had a senior moment there.
You wrote an article quoting someone else talking about stupid people insisting on their stupidity.
I got it. So what happens is, and for this I recommend the movie Quest for Fire. I'm big with books and movies. You know, if a picture's worth 1,000 words, 10,000 pictures are worth 100,000 words. If people are intentionally ignorant, they'll be eaten by lions. And so what happens is that article written by Gary Gilla and his wife was a great martial artist and a spiritual teacher. You know, yeah, I don't like to use the word stupid or moron. I used to use it a lot. So I'm glad Gary said it instead of me, so I can blame him for not being elegant or whatever. But some people, no matter what you show them and no matter what you tell them, they're going to hold. You love them. You think they're beautiful. You think they're smart. You care about them. and I'm gonna put it on both sides. Okay, no matter what you tell them, this moron's gonna vote for Kamala Harris. No matter what you tell them, this moron's gonna vote for Donald Trump. That was pretty good, right? Both sides. I had both sides covered. And so whoever we're thinking of voting for, and I'm not going to tell you my politics, it's obvious it's just stupid. It makes no sense whatsoever, but they're going to do it anyway. So you have to have compassion and empathy. I know a bunch of people that I'm friendly with who don't talk to each other anymore about over this election. And I would just never do that. You know, I like people and I listen to them. They tell me why they like Harris. They tell me why they like Trump. I don't agree with them. And I'm listening. I want to be a good listener. I may be wrong. I may be right. So what happens here is with that article is I'm going to lead that to a story, one of my favorite stories about the territorial imperative and about stupid people. So I'm not going to tell you which one is which. There's two Kenyan long distance runners. They're the best in the world. And sometimes one guy wins and sometimes the other guy wins. They don't know which one is really better than the other, but they're the best around. And one of them shows up one day with a backpack and they're going to start running. And one guy says to the other, why are you wearing a backpack? If you wear a backpack, that extra weight is going to cause you to lose. The guy says, don't worry about it. I know what I'm doing. So they're running, world-class runners. They come around the turn and there's a lion who hasn't had lunch yet looking at them and starts to roar at them. And the first guy says, oh, shit, shaking in his boots. And the second guy opens up his backpack and pulls out a pair of Nikes. And the first guy says, you're stupid. You can't outrun a lion. He says, I don't need to outrun a lion. I just need to outrun you. So that is a story about stupid people, about intentionally ignorant people. You want to people everything. You want to be practical, effective, efficient, precise, productive, rolls right off my tongue. Accountable, self-aware. And if you're not, and those are all metric based. They're not like, this is what I feel. It's not what you feel. You know, either on a metric level, either you run faster this way or you don't. You're more effective or you're not. You're more precise or you're not. You're more practical or you're not. You're more accountable or you're not. You're more self-aware or you're not. And that's what it comes down to. So, hey, I know I'm going to go back to the cancer because I keep on like saying cancer in relation to myself. It's a hobby of mine now. Is I don't know what's going to happen. No one knows what's going to happen. And they told me this stuff, and this is what people say is. The doctors keep saying to me, you cannot do that holistic stuff. I know what you want to do. Turkey mushrooms, coffee enemas. We don't want you doing that stuff. If you do that stuff and it raises your liver enzymes, we're going to have to kick you out of the study that you're in. There's a Sophie's choice. And we can get you on immunotherapy in 2 or 3 weeks. But if you do that stuff, so I said, which stuff am I allowed to use and which stuff am I not allowed to use? And they said, we don't know. So you're telling me I can't do anything, but you can't tell me what anything is. And I finally said to them, which was a people question, does anybody know? No one ever asked. She said, no one ever asked me that question before. Hold on. My wife wants to add something. Let me finish the sentence and you'll add. Thanks.
I would love to add.
Yeah. So I said, that you know this? And she said, yes, a pharmaceutical oncologist would know that. So I called pharmaceutical oncology. And she said, we would know this. There was no, oh, we got to go to a committee. You got to fill out 14, make a list of the stuff that you got, write it down, show it to me, and I'll tell you what you're allowed to use and what you're not allowed to use. Okay, that's PIPSA. And PIPSA is an essential aspect of Harrison's applied game theory. Yes, Lily, you wanted to add something?
Yes, please.
This is my wife, the magnificent Lilia.
I would like to expand that.
My savior.
into, repetitive process.
Oh, yeah, we're gonna go into that.
Oh,
that
you want to go
process.
there? Okay.
You want me to do that?
Sure. Okay. Just, I thought.
Lily, she's just reminding me of what Phyllis asked me for. Okay. So there's a forgotten that.
I think you're hitting a button, Lewis, or something.
Nope. Nope, that's the inefficiency of the technology. It's got nothing to do with me.
Are you?
Okay.
No,
Okay.
I keep on going off camera. And
Ah.
Phyllis thinks it's something that I'm doing, but it's not.
Okay.
Or not physically. It could be quantum mechanics, but not in mechanical physics, it's not. And my intention is not that strong to manipulate the technology. So Richard Dawkins, a brilliant scientist and thought leader, developed the idea of a meme. And kids use the term differently now. Meme is some idea that goes viral online. Lo, can I get more water? Would you mind? She takes care of me like I'm a little baby.
So if you need me in expanding that RTP.
You'll let me know.
Okay.
Thanks. A lot of the ideas I actually get from my wife. She has a passion for physics. And she'll say to me, do you know about this or do you know about that? Okay. So the idea meme is an idea developed by Dawkins to describe models. You know, we have models of things, TV models, packaging models, garden models, they're models. And a lot of them tie into what I talked about before, which is pattern language. Those are all models, shapes of how things are. If you look at the back of Laura, she's got her pictures very neatly on the wall. You know, she probably used a ruler. They're so neat. So that's a model. Gabby's a little more chaotic than Laura is, but you know, she has her books lined up, and of course, Dior is good friends with Gabby, so she's manipulated him and he's manipulated her. Their bookshelves look very similar. And for me, I'm just out of control. I got, you know, the refrigerator and the crap we took off the kitchen table behind us that you can't see. So Dawkins develops the idea of models. And when a model goes viral, when one person has a model and it spreads like a virus through an entire community like TikTok or YouTube, that is called a meme. So here's the challenge. It's me being Mr. Genius again. Of course, I brought it to someone who was a neurobiologist. And I said, this is the most incredible thing I ever heard in my life. And I said, I know, but I don't have a PhD. I'm not an academic. I don't have tenure anywhere. I'm not going to get that prize this year. So when I realized, which I ran past my wife first and then ran past others, is that a virus is only one model of how information gets transferred. And it's a passive process. A virus does not move on its own. A virus gets picked up from a carrier, but it's a passive process. It's not an active process. So it might be you're walking down the street and someone's playing Pretty Woman on their radio by Roy Orbison, and you happen to like Roy Orbison, and suddenly you start singing Pretty Woman. You've been infected. It wasn't intentional to infect you, and it wasn't your intention to be infected. So there are other models for infecting people. One of them is bacteria, which is an active one. You know, it's an, you know, look at it. You're a painter, and you want to be a better painter, and you go to a museum and you look at Jackson Pollock and you say, I want to paint like him, and you start dropping, you know, paint on a canvas on your floor. That is not passive, that is active. And then the third kind is genetic. It comes from someone that, it could be that someone, because I'm older and because they say I'm dying, maybe I get more respect. I don't know. So if I tell you something, well, that guy's smart, he's old and he's maybe dying, I'm going to listen to what he has to say. That's a genetic model. It's being passed from one genetic structure to another. So the term for all three of these combined is regenerative thought processes. That's what they are. They're regenerative. They come out of thoughts and they're processes.
Well, listen, Louis, with that, we're going to turn it off for today. You have been very gracious in giving us your time, and we're grateful for it. And you've also said that you'd be willing to do this again. So we will arrange to have this type of a chat
I
again,
look forward.
and we look forward to it as well. So we thank you for your time. We thank those who have come today, and we look forward to hearing from you next time.
Yep. And the
Thanks
name,
so
of the name of the book is Harrison's Applied Game Theory. It's on Amazon.
There you go.
There
Thank
go.
you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
everybody.
Louis. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for arranging this.
All right. Thank you so much.